Good morning and welcome to the fifth day of the WAPPP Annual Congress. We're starting very strongly this morning with our beloved cooperation partner, APMG International, who has been working with us for almost since the inception of the World Association of PPP Units and Professionals. And we're very grateful for that. And so we're very happy that today they will share some information with us on how the important work on delivering public-private partnerships can be supported by the free education resources that they provide, and also, of course, the CP3P and climate resilient officers training that is run by APMG. I'm delighted to introduce Helen Platt, who is the project manager at APMG for that, and Richard Farrow, who's the CEO of APMG. It shows the importance that APMG is giving to this initiative, and we're really very, very happy for that. Thank you very much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jean-Christophe, and thank you for that very kind introduction. Welcome everybody who is joining this session. It's very hard to say good morning or good evening because I know it is a global audience, and I have to say I'm very impressed by the quality of the event, and I understand there's been over 1,000 delegates throughout the week, which I think is testament to the strength of the World Association and also the growing importance of PPP as a procurement option. So we would like to, could we move on to the agenda? We'd like to just cover a few things in our presentation, a little bit of background about APMG, but not too much. And I'd like to share my personal view, I think, of the challenge we face as project delivery professionals and the importance of what we do and the impact we could have if we get things right. And then we will talk about 4 products that we have that we think are relevant to delivering better programs and projects, and they all link into the PPP program that we run on behalf of the World Bank. So if you could move on to a little bit about APMG. We've been around for about 30 years. We are a certification body. So it's important to appreciate that we are not a training company and we're not a consultancy. We work with major organizations who own intellectual property, and we help them develop training programs or certification programs. Yeah, we have about 400 training companies around the world that we work with around various programs. And the list of training companies that we work with for the products we're talking about today are on our website, and you will see the web addresses as we go through the program. I think the thing that we pride ourselves on is quality, consistency, fairness, transparency. A lot of the key qualities that organizations are now looking at in terms of ESG and sustainability. So because of that strong track record is, I think, why we were selected way back when by the World Bank to develop this program on their behalf. So if we could move on. Yeah, we have a very clear vision. We would like to be recognized as the leading global certification body for knowledge-based workers. What we want to do is to work with organizations and indeed with individuals to help them improve their knowledge, their understanding, so they in turn can improve the processes and the people within the organization, and the way that they work. We are a values-driven organization, and the values that you can see on the screen were actually developed by the company. We got everybody together for a couple of days and people debated and discussed what we thought our values should be. They stood the test of time over about the last 15 to 20 years. They probably need to be updated, but I think they do summarize in essence about what we see ourselves as, and hopefully how other people also see us as a value-driven organization. Moving on. One of the things that we've set out to do, though, is to make professional certification accessible. even before the COVID pandemic hit us, we were moving things online. So we've delivered certifications in over 180 countries around the world. And through our network of training companies, we have representation in most countries around the world. And clearly, with the ability to be able to deliver online, there are now no boundaries to how the programs can be delivered on a global basis. And I was talking to a training company probably about a year ago now, and they said they had delegates on an online course that ranged from the UK to Germany, to South Africa, to Saudi Arabia, to New Zealand and in America. And the question that comes to mind is, how could you ever conceive such a vibrant mix of individuals coming together on a training program other than online? It would be inconceivable to think those people would travel to join a 3-day course or a 5-day course. So delivering products online opens up a whole new world of conversation and sharing a best practice between the individuals that come together to learn together and hopefully to deliver better projects. So if we could just move on. Before we get started, I'd just like to run a short poll. And so the question before us is, what percentage of projects actually succeed? And by success, I mean deliver the expected benefits. So we're going to just open a poll, and I'll just ask you to vote.
Should be available on the right-hand side.
I can see it. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's not scientific, but it's just to set the scene before I sort of share a little bit of research with everybody. So I don't believe we know how you vote, so feel free to vote whatever way you wish.
The votes are coming in.
The votes are coming in. You have me as a disadvantage, Helen. I can't see the votes coming in.
So it seems to be, oh no, they're still coming in. A pretty even divide between the less than 20 and the more than 50, but most people are saying 25 to 30%.
Excellent. Okay. So the independent adjudicator has declared that the majority of people are in the 25 to 30%. Okay. Do you think we can close the poll?
Yep.
Okay, we could move on. This is a very frightening piece of research by Professor Ben Flyberg at Oxford Business School, who suggests that out of 3,000 mega projects, only 27% were on budget or better, but less than 3% were on budget on time, and less than 1% actually delivered the benefits. And if you think about it, it really is shocking, to use his word, that as project professionals, that we are unable to do better than that. Now, I know there's an awful lot of issues associated with mega projects, but when you actually just think about the amount of time people have been running projects, the amount of knowledge we have on project management, the imperative for getting these things right, it does paint the project delivery profession, I think, in a fairly bad light. And just to try to put some sense to that, if we can move on. There's a report out from, I think it was by PMI, that suggests that about 11% of project investment is wasted in projects in general, and over 30% of investment in IT projects is wasted. So if you just look at that and think, so an average number, for instance, I would suggest is about 20% of the investment in projects is wasted. Most mega projects fail to deliver the benefits. Most mega projects fail to come in on time and on budget. And generally, about 20% of our investment in projects is wasted. So if you just sort of think about that for a minute, and if we move on to the next slide, this is suggesting the amount of investment that is necessary in infrastructure around the world. And I think I got this chart from a World Bank site just to sort of try to put things into context. Now, when you think that the global GDP is somewhere between 80 and 85 trillion dollars, you know, we need the equivalence of the global GDP to actually fund this investment program. And that's going to grow from about 79 trillion to 94 trillion over the next, whatever it is, 5 or 10 years. So just think if we could actually improve our delivery, that 20% would actually pay for that funding gap. And I'm not suggesting clearly that we can go from where we are to every project being perfect, but just think about what benefit there will be in that incremental increase if, as project professionals, we can actually do things even slightly better, so that that money can be reinvested and spent on worthwhile, necessary improvements that we need to make to the world's infrastructure. So we do face, you know, a serious problem, and I'd like to suggest that the people on this call have a key role to play in improving that delivery. So very, very sobering thoughts, which we will come back to as we go through the presentation. Moving on. So I have a fundamental belief that education can help. You know, one of the 17 sustainability goals is education. And without education, I don't think we're going to achieve anything. So what we'd like to cover off today are 4 products where all the resources are available for free. And we think they can all benefit the delivery of projects and programs to actually, you know, enable us to meet the challenges that we face in improving infrastructure around the world. So moving on. And over to Helen to start with the major program that we have, which is the PPP Certified Professional. Over to you, Helen.
Thank you, Richard. And I think probably a lot of people on this session today are probably already familiar with the Certified PPP Professional. So its history is that it was an innovation of the World Bank and some other multilateral development banks named here on this slide, and was partly funded by PPF. So you may have seen that lovely logo there at the bottom used to help endorse this certification scheme. For those of you who don't know much about PPP certification program, its aim is to deliver a basic level of knowledge and understanding of the PPP lifecycle. It also has a target to build capacity to deliver PPPs. There is a particular focus on the emerging markets and developing economies, but it is applicable to the whole world. So anyone can take this. And another purpose is obviously to bridge the funding gap through private sector participation, and again, to help meet one of those SDGs to deliver infrastructure projects across the globe. There are huge benefits to the certification program. Why do we need it? The experience has shown that PPP performance can be enhanced through strong leadership and sound technical know-how at all levels. Also through thorough planning and adequate funding. And then, of course, learning from previous experience. That's always a good source of learning. And proper understanding of the principles and documentation involved in the PPP life cycle can also increase efficiency. So how will it help PPP professionals? It will enable candidates from both the public and the private sector to participate effectively. We're bringing together obviously 2 different disciplines. So having that common language will definitely help with the efficiency of the delivery of the program. And also it can provide candidates with a defined career path through earning the credentials. The certification program is supported by the PPP guide. As you can see here on the screen, it is made up of 8 separate chapters, which were authored by a team of international PPP practitioners that were brought together to work on this. Since its launch in the second half of 2016, there have been over 1 million downloads of the PPP guide. It is available for free, and obviously is proving to be a very popular resource for PPP practitioners out there. Chapter 1 basically describes the features of a PPP contract. It covers the main worldwide variations in terminology and structure, and it can also show you what the potential benefits are of PPPs as a procurement option, as well as the challenges and pitfalls. And basically just covers the PPP lifecycle from start to finish. The second chapter describes the main elements of a PPP framework and the challenges that arise in developing the main areas that comprise the framework. And then the remaining chapters from 3 through to 8 describe the typical process cycle. The certification scheme has 3 levels: foundation, preparation, and execution. And candidates can earn these digital badges upon successfully passing those exams. The foundation level covers chapter 1, so that is gives you a full overview of the PPP lifecycle. And then obviously the preparation exam and execution exam go into more details. And for anyone that passes all 3 certifications, they get awarded the CP3P credential that you can see in the bottom right-hand corner. The exams, as well as being available in English, have also been translated. Chapter 1 of the PPP guide is available in 8 other languages. We've got Albanian, Brazilian, Portuguese, Chinese, French, Japanese, Latin American Spanish, Russian, and Serbian. And there is a Ukrainian translation currently underway, so that will be coming soon. The preparation and execution exams, as well as being available in English, are also available in Chinese and Russian. And the exams are also available in those same languages. So we have already had a question come in. We do have at least one other, or 2, I know of 2 trainers on this session today. Someone has heard a rumour that the guide is being updated. So this is correct. Since the launch, we've had a wonderful achievement recently of over 10,000 exams having been taken, and that has been taken across 185 countries. So now is kind of the time to start looking at the content of the PPP guide to make sure that it is staying current and up to date and relevant to its audience. So we have already identified 3 main areas that need to be addressed because some terminology has changed. We also want to incorporate climate and resilience. And there's also been an identification that we probably need some wider case studies in there from the emerging markets. So we are in early discussions with the World Bank and the other MDBs to look at how to update the guide. And we are also looking at whether how we can get feedback from the public as well. So this is the first public mentioning of this refresh. So thank you for your questions. Yes, it will be happening, and we will share more details as and when we have the plan in place. So please do keep an eye out on the PPP website for more details. Which leads me nicely onto this slide. This is the homepage of the PPP website. It is the hub of the certification program. It's where you can go to download the PPP guide. We've also got a number of FAQs there. You can also sign up to our newsletter, and it also is where the free online training, which is just available for the foundation level, can be accessed. It also contains the list of all the training organisations that are accredited to deliver the course, and we publish a number of blogs from the community on there, so definitely worth a visit. So that's it from me. It's over to you, Richard, for the new climate resilience certification.
Okay. Thank you very much, Helen. I mean, just one thing I think to mention before I move on is when we were negotiating with the World Bank to develop the program, one of their executive directions mentioned that if we achieved 5,000 certified professionals around the world, then he would have met all of his expectations regarding the PPP training certification program. I mean, to achieve 10,000 within 8 years, I think is a terrific success. And yeah, many thanks to organizations such as the World Association that have been promoting it, and many thanks to the training companies that also had some trust and faith that we could actually deliver as we promised, to come on board when it was an unknown product. And through them, we were able to develop a truly global market. And hopefully, as it says in the chat, what's our next target? I suppose the obvious next target is 50,000. So that's Helen's, I think, performance target for the next few years. So we will see how we achieve that. But if we could move on, Climate Resilience Infrastructure Officer. And this is a product that was developed by the Global Centre on Adaptation, and they're based in the Netherlands. And as you can see on the slide, you've got the same major organizations working with the GCA to develop guidance on climate resilience infrastructure, which I believe all of us now recognize is going to be crucial to ensuring that people throughout the world can have the services that they deserve and indeed that they require. And what their target is to build up practitioners and people knowledgeable about climate resilience infrastructure. So before I move on to this slide, just leave it where it is though, Helen. If you could just come back to my earlier proposition that as project delivery professionals, we should be able to do better. And so if you look at some of the numbers on this slide about how much climate impact's going to have an effect on spending power, on investment around the world. And if we were delivering better projects, we could actually have some of that money available to meet some of those requirements. So I think this is fairly common to most people. The impact on climate change is having the impact around the world on infrastructure. If we don't build resilient infrastructure, then that's only going to get worse over a period of time. The World Bank estimates that something like 9 to 27% is required to make infrastructure low carbon and climate resilient. Come back to my 20%, and you can see I'm smack bang in the middle of that 9 to 27. It really is a circular economy. If we can do better, we have the money to spend to do better, which then reduces the maintenance costs, and therefore we can do better. And what we have to do is think about climate resilience in everything that we do. And we do need to think about it as a whole team, as a systems approach, rather than one party's problem to try to solve. So if we can move on. I'm a great fan of systems thinking, and I think in terms of the challenges that we face, we can't solve these problems without it. And this is a report from the World Economic Forum talking about systems thinking for infrastructure. And clearly we do need the public partners to understand what they're asking for, understand what they're expecting people to bid for, to make sure that these things are built into the initial invitation to tender or the initial proposal that's coming through. The private sector need to step up and make sure that they can include resilience features into infrastructure without charging a premium cost. If we'll get on to a couple of slides in a few minutes, but there is no reason why it should cost more through the life cycle of a product to be climate resilient than to be non-climate resilient. But it does need people to take a different view of risk. It needs people to take a different view of uncertainty. And I think one of the fundamental things we need to try to do, which is the very small text in the middle of the slide at the bottom, is to get boardrooms, executives, decision makers to understand that this is a problem that we can solve by coming together and thinking about that systems approach and building things in from the start. And if we move on, this report by McKinsey's is interesting, that construction is the second lowest, is the industry with the second lowest rate of digital adoption in the world. It's ahead only of agriculture. And when you think about the billions of dollars that are spent on construction, the idea that construction is not using data-driven decision making, it's not using digital twins, it's not using technology forecasts to make sure that we avoid those horrendous problems that the research showed us earlier about the poor performance in mega projects. And they're recommending here, this is the McKinsey report, public-private partnerships, mixed success record. They need to come together and play an increasing active role in getting mega infrastructure projects built. Need to consider what we do about financing, digital innovation, and other capabilities. Truly, a systems approach. I think it was in the 1990s when the Chief Secretary of the Treasury in Canada actually said, and I think it's called the Cobb's paradox, we know why projects fail, we know what we have to do to improve it, but why don't we do it? So I've been struggling with this problem for 30, 40 years. Maybe technology and the impending problems that we face in infrastructure are going to enable us finally to step up and solve these problems. Moving on. So if we could just play this video, it only takes a minute, but it does talk about the challenges in particular that Africa faces.
Of the climate emergency, but support falls far short of what the continent needs to adapt to the effects of climate change already being felt. A more prosperous, more sustainable, and safer future is achievable. Solutions exist, including climate-smart agriculture, resilient infrastructure, and adaptation jobs for young people. The State and Trends in Adaptation in Africa report provides a detailed, cross-sectoral blueprint for action. Visit gca.org to learn more.
So I would invite you to go to gca.org to see what their all the information they have, the resources they have, the guidance they have about basically building sustainable infrastructure. So if we could move on. But unfortunately, clearly, it's not just Africa. These are extracts from the Climate Resilient Infrastructure Officer Handbook, the CRO Handbook, that just pull out the scale of the problem, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Asia, and the cost of it according to the World Bank. But I'd just like to sort of focus on a couple of things. It says, the third bullet, when properly integrated into or supported through infrastructure, climate resilience has very little cost to the project. The net present value of integrating resilience into new infrastructure project assets exceeds 2 trillion in 75% of the scenarios. And at the bottom, it talks about investment, the net benefit of investing in resilient infrastructure in low and medium income countries is $4.2 trillion over the lifetime of the project, which translates into $4 of benefit for every $1 invested. Now, it's very hard. I keep coming back to it, and apologies if I sound as though I'm being very negative about construction and about infrastructure. But it's hard to think of any other industry where you could invest $1 and get a $4 return, and people wouldn't be doing it all the time. But it seems to be a block for us, and it's a matter of how do we overcome that blockage. It seems to be an obvious, to use the expression, low-hanging fruit, but we just don't seem to be capable of grasping it. A real conundrum there. So moving on, Helen. I've called it the solution. There is a free handbook on GCA. There is free online training from GCA. We do sell a certification, but as I say, the knowledge is for free. The training is for free. Anyone on this call, please go and have a look at it. If you do only one thing after our presentation, please go and look at GCA and see what you can do, who you can influence to start to think about climate resilience, sustainability in the projects with which you're involved. And that will be a really good outcome from our presentation. So moving on.
Thank you, Richard. So moving on to the third certification we wanted to talk to you about today. The next one is the Infrastructure Business Cases International Scheme. It was developed by the Infrastructure and Projects Authority, who is the UK government's centre of expertise for infrastructure and major projects. Their purpose is to drive continuous improvement in the way that the government delivers infrastructure and major projects. They have an international team who provide policy, technical advisory and capacity support to over 600 senior officials and decision makers. These vary from ministries of economics, finance, planning, development banks and multilateral organisations. They are obviously based in London in the UK government, but they also work in country and have worked with, as you can see, 60 countries over the past 5 years. I wanted to pull out one of the key messages from the Infrastructure Business Cases guidance, and that is the importance of early stage thinking. It doesn't cost anything to make a decision, so that is why at the beginning of the project you need to make sure you are looking at all of the options available and thinking about what you are doing instead of how you're actually going to execute the project. There are so many benefits, as you can see listed on there, not just financial, but just a better delivery and better quality of bids coming in. So basically, yeah, get the decisions right up front, and then once you're committed to the project, you can take that through, because as we all know, if you change your mind partway through, it often causes rework, which can obviously then have financial implications as well as time implications. The guidance is available for free on the UK government website. It's split into 3 separate documents. There is the international guidance, which you can see on screen there, but there's also an annex document and a separate case study document. The annexes are a really useful resource. They've got a complete set of diagrams and templates to support your thinking about the development process. They give you a framework for scoping and planning project proposals and to help with the decision making. And the case study is a fictitious rail project and basically illustrates how a business case for an infrastructure project could look and is designed to be used as you're reading the guidance. The guidance is available for you to use to self-study for the foundation and practitioner exams if you wish to go on and obtain a certification, or alternatively, we have got some training organisations who can also deliver a course for you and your colleagues if that's what you're looking for. The foundation exam is available in Latin American Spanish and Bahasa Indonesia. That was a translation that came about due to a client need that the IPA was working on in country in Indonesia and Colombia. But the preparation exam, no, sorry, that's PP3P. The practitioner exam is only available in English at the moment. So that's well worth having a look as well. As Richard says, more free guidance if you're interested in learning more.
So I have noticed there's a number of questions in the chat. Unfortunately, I don't have the dexterity to listen to Helen, watch the screen, and to answer the chat. So I will answer them later. We have allowed time in our presentation for questions at the end. But all the references and the information we shared, we will make available. I should have checked, I'm not sure, but I think the slides will be available after the session through the World Association. But certainly if anyone wants anything, let's say if you put the requests in the chat, then Helen will sort of sort them out and we will get back to you with the answers. So moving on to the final product that we want to talk about, which is called Praxis Framework, which has been around now for about 4 or 5 years, and we've been supporting it through its evolution. So moving on. So Praxis Framework is basically an integrated approach to program and project delivery. And what the authors have done, which is now a multinational group of contributors from around the world, all are putting in their time for free to share their thoughts on best practice with the wider community. But they've looked at all the existing bodies of knowledge, competent frameworks, guidance, and what have you. And they've drawn the obvious conclusion that the underlying science, the underlying approach is the same throughout them all. So they've consolidated that into a single solution. And it's available online. Once again, it's available for free. There's no license to pay. You can just go online and you can use it. And because it is online, then it means that it's always available for you to go back to review, to research, to think about something that you might need to do, or want a checklist for something, or indeed go back and refresh your knowledge on something. So moving on. It's basically broken down into these 4 areas. So there's information about knowledge, the basic underlying theory around some of the project management concepts. There's things in there about method. How can you apply that? Some tools and techniques. How do you build capacity within the team? And how do you assess competence of the team? So it's full of templates, guidance, checklists, and advice. All aimed at making sure that people are using best practice. And as I say, it is available on free and it is community driven. I don't have to my fingertips the number of languages it's been translated into, but I do know that it's been translated into 4 or 5 languages. And that's all been done by sort of volunteers who are trying to promote this, is there a better way of actually delivering programs and projects? There's a couple of things within Praxis that I would just like to pull out though. So if we can move on. They've taken a well-known approach to, I suppose, personality assessment. I'm not sure what the right phrase is, called the DISC model, which looks at the different ways that we manage, that we like to be managed, that we communicate. And I'd just like to sort of put the thought to you, when was the last time working on a project that anyone spent any real time getting to know the other project participants in the sense of how do people want to be communicated with? How can we work together? How do we manage upwards as well as downwards as well as sidewards? Just think of the benefit of taking some time to realize that the sponsor likes everything either in writing in detail, or the sponsor likes everything in just a short number of bullet points. And if you could get that communication right, what would be the impact on your ability to deliver your part of the program, the project, or whatever it is? So the idea that you build into the team setup a small assessment to see how people work, what their strengths and what their weaknesses are, so that you can use this in the way you come together as a team, you collaborate and you work across all the issues that you need to work across. And I come back to it, it's in the tool, it's available for anybody to use. And the second item within the Praxis Framework that I quite like. Moving on. Is this concept of maturity. And when we usually talk about maturity, we talk about a static event. Somebody comes in, usually a consultant, usually a team of consultants with at least one spreadsheet, if not more. They go around the organization, they do lots of interviews, they assess what's going on, and then they come up with a maturity assessment. And that whole process often certainly takes days, if not weeks. And then people look at it and they say that probably didn't tell us much that we didn't know, so therefore we don't do it again. The concept in Praxis is that there's the ability to provide continuous feedback through, again, the medium of short checklists and surveys. So the team can continuously review and comment on performance and continuous improvement. So that if the team genuinely know, sponsor makes a comment, I quite liked what we saw last week, you can do more of it. Sponsor makes a comment that says, the report was too big, can we actually slim it down? You can do something about it. They don't have to be big interventions. They're just sort of the normal hints, tips, comments that we can all benefit from in our daily working lives to do something differently to improve what we're doing. So as I say, there's two things in the Praxis Framework that are free and, to my mind, quite different to what we're normally used to. And if you're brave enough, experiment with them. If you're brave enough, just think, well, what impact would this have on my team, on my project, on the way we work together? And I come back to it. What difference will that make if we can all deliver our projects slightly better so we can deliver more benefits? And most importantly, we can reduce the amount of investment that we waste that can then be spent for better activities for the greater good. Moving on. So that's the end of our presentation. Thank you very much for listening to us, for sticking with us through the presentation. There are some questions in the chat, but we're here to take questions for the next 10 or 15 minutes. And so I'm not too sure how questions are handled. Levin, yep. I don't know if you're here, or Jean-Christophe, or what happens? Do we take them in the chat or do people open mics?
Yeah, I guess you can just pick whatever question you would like, and I can show it on the screen so that people can also read the question, and then from there it's up to you how you want to answer it.
Okay. Well, if people put the questions in the chat and then we put them on the screen and see whether it's best answered by Helen or myself. So I think I have already said one of the questions is, can we get a link to the sources? We will provide that. There's no problem with that. We can provide those back through the organisers or directly. Yeah, we will do that.
Yeah, so I think if you visit our booth in the event, there are links on our page in there which take you out to the various certification schemes. And I think, Lieven, can we share a copy of the slides with everybody that's attended today? Is that possible?
Yeah, I think we're gathering them all together and then we will find a way to share it.
Fantastic. That would be good. I'm also planning on being in our booth for the next 60 to 90 minutes. So please feel free to send me a message through there directly and I can email you whatever links you need. So yeah, happy to help through that if you've got time after the session.
Very good. Richard, Helen, thank you so much for this presentation today. We are very proud to continue to be now maybe for the third year, I believe, in partnership with APMG. This is fantastic. I think it's a win-win. Certainly from our side, making sure we have two objectives as well. One objective is to serve the needs of our members, and the other objective is advocacy for the PPP profession. And certainly your services do serve the needs of our members. And making sure that PPP is executed according to best practices and in the right way goes a long way to helping with our advocacy effort to make sure that PPPs are respected as a profession around the world, that we are not accused of catering to the elites and whatnot, all the negative things that one hears about it, we are sure that when executed properly, PPP projects can deliver a lot of good for humanity, especially at this point in time. The other thing is that, related to climate change, obviously taking the effects of climate change into consideration is especially related to adaptation, is unique to PPPs. In the sense that you can execute a construction and infrastructure project on a normal procurement basis without ever thinking of the climate change effects. But you cannot do that if you're doing PPP properly, because risk evaluation and risk assessment and the entire life cycle of a PPP project are integral to designing and delivering a PPP project. And so in many ways, that cost of the climate change effects, if not the causes, at least the effects, is already built into a proper PPP assessment. And I think this is great. Couple of more things I want to say. One is APMG offers a lot of courses beyond what Richard and Helen have told us about today. You can find them on their website. Many of them are related to our profession. They did mention the infrastructure business cases, but there are courses on project management also that are very interesting. And finally, they have a course on finance for non-financial professionals. So many in our community might come from a public sector background or an engineering background or something else, and being able to take a course like this is very important. One thought I have, and I'm just being a bit facetious, I know, is that perhaps APMG should have a course on PPP for politicians. That would be similar to PPP for finance non-finance professionals. Because if politicians start understanding a little bit about PPP, that would go a long way to help us all. So I don't know if you wanted to say anything more, take any questions or whatever, but I will end my remarks here. And I don't know, Jean-Christophe, if you're around. Did you want to, is there anything in this session that we have not covered?
So thank you for that. I think not only do politicians need to know more about PPP, I think politicians need to know more about a lot of things, looking at the state of the world today.
Indeed.
No, I think it was very, very enriching to see the wealth of information available through this global certifications leader. I think we should look at the questions in the chat there, because they are very rich, and maybe we can enlighten them with your insights, Helen and Richard. Shall we do that?
Yeah.
In the last couple of minutes we have. So I would like to start with a question from Eric Weil, who says, amongst our WAPP membership base, we have quite a number of PPP practitioners. How is the trend as to requirements to PPP certification for consultants and advisors responding to public tenders from various public procuring organizations? Are there any stats?
We certainly don't see anything like that. We very rarely see tenders that put out. We only see the output from tenders for training. And it is clear that the World Bank is funding quite a lot of training around the world, where they're training government teams in understanding PPP. But I haven't seen anything where people have shared with us that there's an advert out seeking PPP certifications for advisors to government departments.
Okay, next question is from Levan. Will the CP3P course be translated in other languages? Languages is sometimes a challenge during trainings, and to strengthen that, there's a specific question. Is there a plan to have a guide in the Arabic language?
We do get a lot of interest in translations. It's obviously depends on the demand and the availability of a PPP certified professional to conduct the translation. As I said, at the moment, Chapter 1 and the foundation exam are being translated into Ukrainian, and the 2 higher levels and the rest of the guide are also planned to be translated as well. I have had conversation with an individual who was looking for funding for a translation into Arabic, hoping to hear back from him. He said he'd get back to me next month. So we'll see how that opportunity progresses, because it does sound like there is a demand. So hopefully, but nothing confirmed at the moment specifically with regards to Arabic. We are also looking at getting the higher levels translated into Brazilian Portuguese and Latin American Spanish to extend from the foundation exams that are already there. And the World Bank have also mentioned that they are seeing demand for French translation at the higher levels as well, but there is nothing confirmed on that at the moment. So yes, definitely conversations happening. So keep an eye on the website, and we'll announce future languages as and when they come. But if there's another language that you see demand for that I haven't mentioned, please do get in touch and let me know, and we'll see if we can take that further.
Great.
I think the question on language in training is also a question. We have a number of trainers who are multilingual. So even though the material may not have been translated, then it could be delivered by a trainer in another language. So people are looking for different languages. It may be worth just checking out with some of the training companies where they have fluent trainers in those languages.
Then we have a question here from I think a user, Maurice, who is asking, how do you explain that despite fairly high exam fees, there is not the slightest resit session for candidates who do not pass on their first attempt?
I think you take that one.
That is an interesting question. We can take that away. As you say, the exam fees are quite high. They were established sort of in consultation to start with, but we can take away the question about a discount for resits and a lower price for a resit.
Can I say something regarding that? Because perhaps many of the people attending today are not members of WAPP. Just for you to know that if you do become a WAPP member and you pay your membership fee, with the discount you get from APMG by being a member of WAPP, you'll be ahead. Your exam will cost you less.
Win-win.
That's a win-win.
Yeah.
Okay, now something a bit more maybe future and forward-looking. I hear you recently passed a major milestone in the number of CP3P accredited PPP professionals. Helen, how many were it?
10,000.
10,000. That's a big number. That's impressive. So what is the next milestone, and how can WAPP best help and support?
I think the next milestone is 50,000, because 25,000 is too easy. So 50,000 is a little bit more aspirational. I think you do to carry on doing what you do to promote the value of professionals in PPP, to continue to promote the value of education, the value of certification for both the individual and the organization. But I mean, you've done a lot over the last few years in helping to promote it. And so I think if you can just do more of the same, and maybe jointly, if we could get to some senior decision makers on the overall value of PPPs, the education, maybe even to the odd politician who might see the light. Having said that, one of our trainers actually was invited in by the Minister of Finance in one of the stands. I think it was Kazakhstan. I can't remember now. And they changed their whole procurement process on infrastructure to PPPs based on that conversation and the value they could see coming from it. So it can happen. Not often, but it can happen.
That's the power of influencing. I think this links beautifully with Ziad Alexandro's suggestion that we should have sessions for politicians, because these decision makers can make the change at the end. So very, very good initiative, and blends wonderfully in our initiatives to try to advocate for more and better PPPs.
Yeah, I do think our colleagues at the World Bank do that all the time, looking at the number of conversations and meetings they have with various people. I think they are pretty active at that level. And we certainly see training requests coming through from a wider range of countries, which can only be through the initiatives by the World Bank or IFC.
Excellent. I think we've pretty much covered the questions. So maybe one final closing statement from our friends from APMG International. Helen, how do you see things? And Richard, from your side too?
I think people are definitely seeing the value in the certifications. And also I think, as we've said, there is a wide range available, and it's not just one solution. I think, you need to have a broader range of skills and knowledge to make sure that you can deliver that efficiency that we're hoping to achieve. Richard?
For me, I mean, I suppose I have both a negative and a positive comment. And I suppose for me, have we left it too late to solve some of the major problems that we face in terms of climate change, infrastructure, the whole problems that we face on a global scale? Or do we think there is still enough time to do things differently? And if there is enough time to do things differently, then that time has to be now. You can't keep leaving it. And I come back to it. We're moving into a world which is going to be project driven. Most organizations are moving down a project driven development structure. People on this call at the height of that deliver a project through infrastructure. We need to stand up and actually be accounted and push for more, better definition, better projects, better investment, more time thinking, systems thinking, everything we know we should do, but we've never been brave enough to put our head above the parapet and do. Otherwise, it could be too late.
Very well put. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Invite everybody to attend our next session. It's about young PPP professionals. We definitely need those in our community who are young. They can contribute a lot. They may not have the experience of people with gray hair like us, but they certainly are the future. And really, I encourage you to be very supportive. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.